Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to our /MaliciousCompliance, where people follow exact orders despite the ones they hate. And in today's episode, we've got quite the lineup, guys. We've got bad bosses, nasty Karen customers, scammers getting exposed. It's a great one today. So grab a drink, sit back, relax, and remember, guys, this voice should only be on the Dark Fluff YouTube channel, nowhere else. So this was about 5 years ago, and setting the stage, I had been with this massive global company, one of its manufacturing divisions, for about 7 years. I was tier 3 IT support, mostly behind the scenes and stuff, and online meetings with folks, on call as well. The guy who hired Steve, the department director, was great. I am still in jeans and a t-shirt. I have like 200 plus silkscreen tees, nothing offensive, but pleasantly entertaining. Steve decides to exit the corporate world, and I didn't want his job, so the massive company found and hired a new director, who I'll call Jay. Now, Jay and I got along well, or so I thought, but then I start seeing that he was intimidated by my skill set and my ability to resolve issues with either a PowerShell script I already had or by a command line, very quickly fixing issues in a matter of seconds using methods he couldn't understand. That's when Jay started to look for things to discipline me for. Here we go. Jay decided that my wearing t-shirts was unprofessional. I would say to him, "What do you mean by unprofessional?" Jay told me it gives the impression to others that you don't respect them, and they don't think they can trust you to do your job correctly. I responded, "Others? Who? Who thinks I can't do my job?" Jay just says to me, "Look, I'm not gonna argue this. You need to come to work in office-appropriate attire, period. No more t-shirts." I clarified and I said, "So I'm not capable of doing my job unless I'm wearing office-appropriate attire, and I'm not allowed to do my job unless that's how I'm dressed?" Jay bluntly and dismissively says, "That's it." To which I reply, then I need to add this kind of specific detail to this write-up. And yes, he was putting it on paper, so I added that to my comment. Management determined and explained to me, and I now understand that I'm not able to perform my work-related tasks in a professional manner unless I'm wearing office-appropriate attire. Then, for about 3 weeks, I would wear slacks and polo shirts. On a Friday night, I get a call at about 11:15 p.m. as I'm on call that there is an issue affecting multiple production lines. None of the computers are connecting to the network. Can't print labels, blah blah blah. My plan was finally set into motion. I tell the production supervisor that I can't do anything about it because I'm not wearing office-appropriate attire. He knew what I was referring to. I told him that all of my work clothes were at the dry cleaner, and I'll pick them up on my way to the gym Monday morning. That blew up tremendously, as expected. Jay calls me early Saturday morning, where I bluntly and dismissively tell him that this issue is his problem, not mine, that he's the one who disciplined me and insisted that I wasn't able to do my job unless I was wearing office-appropriate attire. I then go on to remind him that it is documented that I must be wearing office-appropriate attire in order to do my job, and that this will all be happening on Monday morning after I pick up my clothes from the dry cleaner. He of course loses his mind, and that's when I remind him, "Your rules, buddy, not mine. Have a nice weekend." He screams at me saying, "Then tell me how to fix this." I just tell him, "Sorry, I'm not even wearing pants right now. I can't do work stuff." He angrily hangs up the phone, and Monday, I come in prepared for battle. With HR, Jay, and the plant manager in the same room, I spell out how this is going to work. I say to them, if you don't like this, let me know now. If you folks don't think I can do my job wearing a t-shirt and jeans after doing my job exceptionally well for the past 7 years while wearing a t-shirt and jeans, I honestly don't know what to tell you. This changed when Jay shows up. I promise you that what I'm wearing is not the problem. Jay is. If you see it otherwise, explain it to me. HR and the plant manager are flabbergasted, saying, "What?" I repeat myself and say, "Don't play stupid. You saw that write-up and you filed it accordingly." The plant manager screams, "What?" And that's when I explain the write-up to plant manager. Plant manager says that's the stupidest thing he's ever heard, and ultimately, he blasts Jay and HR. The plant manager reassures me that this will never happen again, that the write-up is garbage, and if I have any other problems, to let him know. He asked me to fix the production line issue, so I pop up my laptop screen, log in, run a PowerShell script, and I say, should be good to go in a few minutes. About 6 months later, I suspect that Jay was up to some unscrupulous stuff, and I found all kinds of proof in his email. I sent that off to the plant manager and Jay was terminated immediately. And for those who might be wondering, Jay was terminated for embezzlement. He was buying equipment on company POs, then selling the equipment back to contractors at quote, below cost and keeping those funds. Then, he was approving the invoices submitted by those contractors and no one was the wiser. I had been talking to one of the contractors who had mentioned that they were surprised at how little they paid for the equipment. And I knew that the company bought that stuff, so I investigated. Jay had deleted the applicable emails to cover his tracks, but we have a 20-year email retention policy in place, so pulling it all up was pretty easy. Seriously, I can't help but to smile at how this all ended for Jay. And this is why you should never mess with IT people. They can literally ruin you. Like, not only was that a satisfying malicious compliance, but the fact that OP ends up getting the idiot fired, that was the cherry on top. This next post, OP defeats a scummy manager. So I was racing between things one day, and I didn't have much time for lunch. At the time, McDonald's wasn't absurdly expensive, and one was on the way to my next stop, so I decided to hit the drive-thru so I could eat on the way. I placed my order for a medium McThing, and I got asked if I wanted a large, and I said no. When I got to the window to pay, the price seemed a bit high, which I thought was odd. Maybe I did the mental math on the taxes wrong, or I misremembered the price of the item. And then, the cashier doesn't hand me a receipt, which is weird as well, but whatever. When I got to the window to receive my food, it all clicked as they hand me a large, which I declined as I really had zero interest in paying $2 for a few more fries and a soda. At this point, the manager appears and he stated, "We don't do refunds here." And that's when I realized what was going on. Having worked fast food before, they were probably doing some sort of upcharge competition. Ring up the most larges and you and that manager get a reward. I was slightly flabbergasted, but the manager repeated that no, there's no possibility of a refund. I politely smiled and I said, "That's okay. I'll call my bank on speaker to do a chargeback. I'll need you to talk to them. Since it's on speaker, you can just tell them you can't do refunds." I then proceed to sit at the window calling my bank during lunch hour at a very busy drive-thru. Well, it turns out they can do refunds, and they can do them so fast I didn't even make it past 2 rings. And yes, I did file a complaint with corporate, but it's not like that actually does anything. A few years ago, I bought a new shed/sunroof combination for my garden. It was pretty expensive, and thus, I also paid for the company to build it. Knowing me, I would mess up, so I was happy to pay a professional to come fix that for me. The shed had a flat roof covered with a layer of bitumen, which is basically a thick, waterproof roofing material that feels like coarse sandpaper. Since I paid extra for professional installation, I expected everything to be done properly. Well, the installer simply tacked the bitumen down around the edges and they called it a day. I even asked him, hey, shouldn't this be glued down as well? The guy brushed me off like I had no idea what I was talking about. Well, 6 weeks later, a storm rolls through and it rips the entire roof covering clean off. So I called the company, expecting them to fix what was obviously a bad installation. Instead, they claimed I should have known it was only a temporary roof, and this type of covering needs to be replaced every year. I just thought to myself, seriously, it's only been 6 weeks. So I argue that a brand new roof shouldn't blow apart after a small storm, but they refused to help. They insisted the storm was an act of God and therefore not their responsibility. Eventually, they promised to send me a replacement roll of bitumen so I can repair it myself. So I waited and waited and waited, but the replacement never showed up. I went to their Facebook page and I found lots of people complaining about similar stuff. So I write a review warning people to not buy their expensive sheds as they get built wrong, and any damage resulting from this does not get resolved by them whatsoever. Mind you, the shed was well over $1,000. Half an hour later, I get a phone call from said company. They tell me that they'll come the next day to put on expensive shingles to make up for the damage at their own cost. But the catch is, I have to change my review. So I wait for them to come fix it, and they held to their promise. So did I. So I got on their page and I wrote how they came and fixed my roof, and they even exchanged the material for a much more expensive solution the very next day. And in all caps, I wrote, at their own cost. Needless to say, this caused a crap storm of customers demanding the same solution. You're welcome, a-holes. What a wonderfully petty malicious compliance that was. And this is a great example of penny wise, pound foolish guys. Like that company wanted to save every nickel and dime in the original work, but little did they know that OP would come along. And from what OP said in the comments, it was dozens upon dozens of angry reviewers demanding the company also fix their sheds with fancy shingles for free. Absolutely brilliant review, OP. So this happened back in the early 1980s, so all the dialogue is condensed and paraphrased. I was a 19-year-old geek, putting myself through school as a sweeper, working for the Mouse in Southern California. Being a sweeper meant I was stationed all over the park. Because we were always out in the open, guests would constantly come to us with questions. Security could be intimidating, ride operators were often stuck at their attractions, and restaurant employees couldn't leave their stations. We, on the other hand, were expected to know a bit about everything and help anyone who asked. It was basically a customer service job with a broom, and honestly, I really enjoyed working there. My primary work area was centered around the Pirates of the Caribbean attraction, which is a major traffic hub in the park. At busy times, which is most summer days, it was hot, crowded, and by the shift end, you were glad it was done and ready to go home. I was into the last hour of my shift. The crowds had thinned out, but the sun was down and the night was pleasant. I was happily cruising about, keeping my area neat. And this is when a pair of 30-something males approached. Let's call them Mocker 1 and Mocker 2. Mocker 1 says, "Hey sweeper, there was some popcorn spilled by the haunted mansion. You better go clean it up." Mocker number 2 laughs nastily. Now, that's some hundreds of yards away in another guy's area. Not only is that not my problem, but actually, unless some danger was caused by it, I shouldn't go. Me, with a friendly smile and nod, I say, "Thanks, we'll get it." This is when Mocker number 1 tosses a cup on the ground and he says, "Here, clean this up." With a flourish, I popped it onto my pan with my broom. Mocker number 2 says in a sneering voice, "When's the 3 o'clock parade?" This of course causes Mocker number 1 to laugh. And believe it or not, this is a very common question, one that can be heard multiple times daily. Usually, it translates to, what's the parade route and when should I get there to get a good spot? But this was at 8:45 p.m. I was off at 9 o'clock, so this was meant to annoy me and to waste my time. I cheerfully respond, the 3 o'clock parade will be tomorrow at 3 o'clock. And you would think this would be the end of it, but no. This pair continued on for another 5 minutes, asking random, pointless questions and pointing out the odd cigarette butt, leaf, or piece of paper and mocking and sneering at me. Basically, they were making fun of me for their own entertainment and wasting my time. I found it mildly annoying. It was at this moment the heavens opened and a choir of angels sang. Mocker number 2 asked the single most common question. He says, "Oh, hey, I gotta go, where's the bathroom?" Mocker 1 chimes in and says, "Yeah, where is it? I gotta go too." Now, in a surprisingly Warren-like space behind me, there was a tiny and hard-to-find restroom. I've never sent anyone there. It was well hidden. I only guided urgent cases personally, but no, not this time. The next closest was right across Adventureland, which is a straight walk, 3 minutes, less if moving urgently. Also, no. With a nod and a cheerful customer service smile, I motioned with my hand for them to turn around. I say to them, "Turn around. You see that rail? Go to it and follow it to the right. When it ends there will be a path on the right. At the end of that path is another path on the right. The restroom's right there." And with that, they set off. I'm sure they were quite expressive when they arrived 2 lands away, halfway across the park, to a tiny elderly restroom in Fantasyland. 10 minutes later, I was off, and I never saw those 2 again. And was that a jerk move? Arguably so, I can't deny. But I'll file it under play stupid games, win stupid prizes. And this is an example of how stupid some people can be, to ask questions from a stranger who they just mocked and belittled. Again, I love a good petty malicious compliance. Like those 2 asked for the bathroom, not the nearest bathroom, and OP delivered. And this person comments and says, I would have told them, sure, follow the main road until you see a big gate marked exit. Now, you might think that's the exit, but don't worry, go through it. Then, keep walking till you come to a building called Harry's Truckers Bar. Go inside. There's the bathroom. Now, inside the building are all actors. They love to be made fun of. Among 20 and 30-somethings around the world, social dance has become not just a hobby, but a community. People routinely travel to other cities and even countries to attend dance weekends, with local dancers hosting visitors. It's a great combination of fun, social connections, and hijinks, and a physical skill that can ratchet up to high intensity. Many such events are organized by professionals who are event organizing rock stars. Other events are fly-by-the-seat-of-their-pants affairs run by amateur organizers who couldn't manage a lemonade stand. This story is about the second kind. An organizer announced a 4-day dance camp in another state with a bunch of instructors. It was a first-time event, but I knew these people from some past events and it sounded like fun. 4 months before the event, a registration website opened, and the early bird registration cost was like $600. I had the time, and I had 30 single professional income, so I bit the bullet. Weeks passed, and TBD event details remained TBD, which was unusual, but not that unusual. Cue more weeks passing. I start periodically emailing the lead organizer asking for updates. Occasionally, I got vague assurance that it's all good. Other times, radio silence, deepening skepticism. 4 days before the start of the event, I receive a message from the lead organizer. It said, event canceled. Something rain damage to the venue. I was disappointed, but hardly surprised. I was mostly annoyed because United wouldn't change or refund my ticket. So I start asking, when shall I expect a refund? And their reply was, sorry, we lost all the money on the planning of this event. No refunds. To which I thought, no effing way. So I start digging, and rain damage looks sketchy because the National Weather Service reported that the whole state had received 1 inch of rain in the past month. I personally knew one of the lead organizer's associates, so I call him up, and he said, yeah, there's no rain damage. He then gave me an earful about months of non-planning. This event had been a mirage, so I sent a rather to-the-point email message demanding a refund, and the lead organizer agreed and asked for a few weeks, but the refund didn't arrive. More email exchanges led to more promises and even more missed dates. Eventually, about 9 months after the scheduled event, I received one last response. The response was, "Don't ask me about this again, or I won't refund anything." So I wait another month, and then, late one evening, something in my brain clicked, and I decided, your time is up. Cue my malicious compliance. If he doesn't want me to ask him about it again, okay, I won't. Instead, I visit the main web forum for this dance community, and I posted my entire experience, backed by the facts and dates and quotes. I copy the full unedited email exchange between me and this organizer, up to and including his last message. I reviewed and tweaked it carefully, repeatedly, making sure that every statement was accurate and fair. I clicked post and then went to bed. When I woke up the next morning, my inbox was on fire. The dance community came down on this organizer like a nuclear bomb. Upcoming events scratched him from their rosters. People posted about the slimy things this organizer had done previously in past events. Students and I was later told that some friends had dropped him. And the best part is a few pro organizers of other top-tier events publicly responded. They wrote, "This is not how our community operates and not how we treat people. And to prove it, we're offering OP a complimentary pass to our events." The scummy lead organizer initially posted an indignant reply, but he quickly realized the gravity and hopelessness of his situation, and he shifted gears. He calls me and begs for forgiveness and promised a full refund. He was saying about needing a cash advance from a credit card. The full refund arrived a week later. For years afterwards, I periodically receive messages from people reading, "Hey, this organizer wants to do an event with us, but we heard something about a bad experience you had with him. Can you tell us what happened?" I would reply, "Sure, here's a link to the forum post that documents what went down." I deleted it about 5 years after the event because I don't believe in ruining people for life. But at that point, he was already fully ruined, as of course, word does get around fast and nobody could trust him. What a well-played malicious compliance from OP, and seriously, that scumbag got everything he deserved in the end, which was getting absolutely ruined. Like, I don't know how he thought he was going to get away with all that money. In this last story, OP's malicious compliance cost the company $10,000. A few months ago, a new business investor at work came on board as a manager, and the guy's been an absolute hard ass. He's cracking down on anything he considers to be a waste of time, and he's very unforgiving. After a week of watching us work, he and other managers held a company-wide meeting to, quote, iron out some wrinkles in the company. It wasn't an open dialogue, though. In fact, that's one of the things he wanted to wrinkle out. It was essentially 20 minutes of "it's my way or the highway, deal with it." The line, "if we want your input, we'll ask for it, period," really stuck with me though, and it was made abundantly clear afterwards that it was directed right at me. The company had a big problem recently with employee turnover, and I was in the position to know why, since I interact with everyone through my role. Essentially, people are quitting because the work they were doing wasn't what they signed up to do. The phrase, "if I knew this was what I was gonna be doing, I wouldn't have accepted this job," was a common sentiment. They accepted the job under the impression that they would be serving customers, answering emails and phone calls, general customer service stuff, but instead, they spent about 90% of their time in a hot warehouse, packing orders over and over again. I shared that with management, and I let them know what the people leaving were saying, just in case they wanted to take that into account moving forward. They just thanked me and I left, but the new manager hated it so much that he decided to make another meeting about giving them unsolicited advice. They spoke with me privately afterwards and referred back to when I told them about what the quitting employees were saying. And they told me that how they saw it, that they think I was implying that they were being deceitful when hiring people. I told them, no, I don't think that at all. I was just relaying what those people were saying about how they felt. They didn't care though. They doubled down and they said to me, if we want your input, we'll ask for it. Period. That's how I knew it was directed at me, and I asked them for clarification, like what constitutes advice or input. And the new boss says to me, unless you're asking us a question about the work you're supposed to be doing, we don't want to hear it. We don't want your opinion on how you think we should handle situations. We don't want your ideas on how you think the business can be better run. We don't want your gossip about what the other people are saying about us. Just focus on your job and let us do our job. That's why we're in our position. Right after he said that, I just thought, fine, I'll roll with that, no problem. I've worked with them for years, and they always appreciated my ideas, my opinion, and my input until that point. But I thought to myself, if they don't want my input anymore, that's their choice. I'll respect it. I knew it was just the new boss power tripping and saying that stuff, since this sort of attitude with them only started when he did. But the others either agreed with him, or they were too intimidated to disagree. Either way, whatever, I'll comply with their request. Since then, the problem hasn't been fixed. We've had 2 more people come and go, both of them because they didn't sign up for this, which is a huge shocker. A third one started about 5 weeks ago, and he's taken his frustration in a different direction. I've overheard him complaining over and over again to other people how he didn't sign on to stand around in a hot warehouse for hours packing orders. But instead of quitting like everyone else, he just got angrier and angrier. And then the guy hulked out. I was upstairs at my desk when I start to hear smashing. I went down to the warehouse to see what was going on, and this guy was taking customers' packages and he was smashing them out of frustration. A few others in the warehouse just gathered and they watched in amusement. It was like something out of a cartoon, honestly. The new boss heard the commotion and he comes down. Long story short, the guy was fired, and I was asked if I knew why he flipped out. I just said I don't know what happened exactly to cause him to flip out, but I know for a few weeks he's been complaining about not signing up to work in a hot warehouse for hours. Maybe he reached a tipping point about it, I'm not sure. And the boss says to me, well, why didn't you tell us? So of course, I said, because the last time I told you that employees were complaining about that, you accused me of implying that you were being deceitful when hiring them. And then you told me to stop gossiping, remember? His face went bright red, which was just so delicious to witness. But I was also reprimanded for taking the request too literally, and he accused me of being petty towards him. Whatever though, I don't care, because I had to adjust the stock level for the goods that had to be replaced, and they lost over $10,000 in the rampage. Some of the items that were smashed were worth $2,000 each, and learning that made the whole thing worthwhile. Perhaps enjoying that does make me petty. Listen, I only wish the new boss suffered consequences for his words. Like the $10,000 loss was a lot, but that was the company taking the hit, not him. And here's another thing, guys. Like the fact that so many people use the phrase, I didn't sign up to work in this hot warehouse, I quit, means the company's actually being deceitful in its hiring practices. So yeah, that new boss is an idiot. But like so many Karen bosses I read about, right? And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our /malicious compliance. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy stories. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, it's an r/petty revenge episode where psycho Karens think they own the plane and they're getting absolutely destroyed. Guys, go check it out if you haven't. And myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.